Hello, I'm Pete Martin. If you would like to see more videos in this series or other videos of mandolin, fiddle, improvisation, and other music subjects, subscribe to my channel. Click the bell icon to be notified of new videos. If you like the video, please click like. Players interested in improvisation should check out two series I'm doing. Improv from Scratch is for non-jazz players who want to learn to improvise or who want to improve their improvisation. Jazz players should check out the Barry Harris for Jazz Mandolin series. Find these by going to petemartin.info, click videos, and scroll down. This video is going to assume that the individual student has at least some basic music theory knowledge, like how to construct chords and what notes are made up in those chords. So for example, a G major chord is the notes G, B, and D. And also, this video assumes the knowledge that you know where those notes are located around the fingerboard. So if I say the note G, you would know that the open G string and the 12th fret of the G string are both G notes. The 5th fret on the D string is a G note. The 10th fret on the A string is a G note. The 3rd fret on the E string is a G note. Usually you just need to know the notes in the first 12 frets and you're fine. But if you can figure those out and you know at least a little bit of music theory on how chords are constructed, you shouldn't have any problems following this video. Normally when you're playing a standard notey fiddle tune like a Blackberry Blossom, a Salt Creek, Gold Rush, Soldier's Joy, something like that, you're just playing on one pair of strings. You always want to hit both of the pair on both the downstroke and the upstroke, but you're normally just playing on one pair of strings. So you'll need to get used to playing on two pairs of strings, and you want to hit both pairs on both the downstroke and the upstroke. Example 1 is a really good way to start this. It just plays open G and D, open D and A, and then open A and E. And you play on each for 2 measures and go to the next. So here's example 1. If you find you're having trouble playing 2 pairs of strings on both the down and upstroke, there's a couple things to try. First of all, you're really just using your normal picking motion, except you're just cutting a bigger path, so to speak. You're just moving slightly farther so that you're taking in 2 pairs instead of 1. A thicker pick can definitely help here. A lot of pro players use kind of at least a minimum 1.2 millimeter pick. I personally like a 1.5 millimeter pick or thicker. Sometimes I do use thicker. And you need to make sure if you use a heavier pick that you're holding the pick loose enough that the pick does not hang in the strings and can rotate in your fingers. Now try playing example 4. music styles will quite often just play a neighboring open string as long as that open string is one of the notes of the chords that is being played. A real good example of this is Buffalo Gals in the key of A. First, let's learn the straight melody of Buffalo Gals, which is example 7. Now we're going to hit 2 pairs of strings all the time. So follow the tablature and the music in, and here is example 8. If you find the information in this video useful, I ask that you consider supporting my channel through my Patreon page, which is www.patreon.com/PeteMartin. For about the price of a cup of coffee, $3 a month, you support the making of videos, instruction articles, transcriptions for fiddle, mandolin, and improvising. Thank you for considering this. Playing drone strings on Buffalo Gals definitely makes it sound more old-timey. But that is definitely not what we do in Bluegrass Mandolin. Bluegrass fiddling does the same thing when we want to play double stops on singing pieces. It is one option, but it tends to sound more old-timey, and bluegrass players tend to play something a little different. So let's take a look at that using the standard tune Columbus Stockade Blues. We're going to just play the verses Columbus Stockade Blues here, so we need to learn it first and look at that in example 34, which is played here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. If we look at Columbus Stockade Blues, if we look at the notes that are held the longest, they are notes of the chord. Right off the bat, we have a G melody note, the 5th fret on the D string, and that's against a G chord. That is the root note of the chord. That is definitely one of the notes of the G chord, the note G. The next long-held note is a D note against a G chord. That's the 5th. The common thing that bluegrass players do when they make double stops on these singing pieces is they look for these long-held notes, and if the long-held note is a note of the chord that's happening in the chord progression behind them, which it generally almost always is, then you simply look for the next chord tone higher. So what do I mean by that? The G chord has the notes G, B, and D. So if a G is a melody note, the next note in that chord higher would be B. If B was the melody note, the next note higher in that chord would be D. If D is the melody note, the next note higher would be G. So if we look at this, the double stop notes are G and B. G is the melody note, B is the harmony against a G chord. Those are two of the three notes of a G chord. So we've got the melody, and then the next chord tone up is the double stop. The next double stop we see in example 35 has the note D against a G chord, so G is the double stop over the top of that. Once again, it's the next chord tone of the G chord higher, because G is the chord that's happening in the tune right here. The next double stop we have is the note B is the melody. We're still against a G chord, so the next chord tone higher is D. Now we have to move around the fingerboard because we would normally play a B note at the second fret of the A string. And because a D note is the fifth fret of the A string, we can't play a double stop with two notes on the same string. So we have to move the D, we keep the D note where it is, and we have to move the B note to the ninth fret of the D string. So that makes B is our melody, D is our double stop. We're still against a G chord, and these two notes are two notes of the G chord. Okay, the last double stop that the second to last double stop that we have to learn, the first of the second line of the music in tab, it's against a D chord where the D note is the melody, and the next note higher in a D chord from the note D is F sharp. Once again, long-held melody note, find the next chord tone up of the chord that's happening behind you at that time. Then toward the end of line 2, we're back to a G chord, a G melody note, and once again, B is the double stop. Okay? So we go all the way through this tune, finding the long-held melody notes, and then placing the next chord tone of the current chord in the tune on top of that, and those are the double stops. So we see that just with the simple melody in example 35. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Now example 36 uses this same thing, and all we're going to do is fill in with down and upstrokes on these double stops and these long held notes, and I put in just a couple of simple little runs in there to give it just a little more of a bluegrass mandolin flavor, and you can learn that from the music and tablature. So here is example 36. If you want to go into this in more depth, just go all the way through the book, Bluegrass Mandolin, Creating and Using Double Stops. But the process is the same. For an old-time kind of sound, you play a neighboring drone string if that drone note the neighboring open string, is a note of the chord. If it isn't, you really have to use your ear and see if it fits or not. Okay? For bluegrass double stops, you find the long-held singing note and then simply play the next note of the chord of the current chord that's happening at that point in the tune, the next chord tone up, at the same time, and that is the most common bluegrass double stops. There's, of course, many other things that you can play, and I definitely go into that in the book toward the end, but those are the most common things. So the book will give you a number of tunes that you can learn and do that with. Eventually, if you do this enough, you can just improvise with this and you'll know where everything is. It takes a bit of time, but you'll get there if you just keep doing it. If you have questions or suggestions, please use the comments section below. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, click the bell icon, and click like if you feel so inclined. Also, check out my website and Patreon page, the links to which are on screen. I'm Pete Martin. Thanks for watching.